Hello, Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network listeners. I am Jeff Hawkins, co-host of Shake Them Ropes, with a very special announcement. If it's been a while or you've never listened to us before, the original gang is back. Myself and Rob McCarran, back talking wrestling. We have no idea where this show's going to go, where we're going to keep any of the old bits or any of the old things in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and we'd like for you to come along with us. Only on Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee. Here, I'm Fred Moreland with Tyler Fornes, and our special guest for today, Dave Meltzer, the man, the myth, the legend. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Hey, great to be here.
Dave, earlier this week, I published the Voices of Wrestling poll, staff poll, I should say, for the best matches of WrestleMania weekend with Chris Hero and Sinka Akatsuki taking top match. I'm definitely not vamping as I try to scroll to the right part of it. Actually, I finished second. I messed that up. Blue Panther and Ultimo Guerrero at the CMLL show took first. Second was Hero and Sinka, and third was Despy and Jun Kasai against Masashi Takeda and Rina Yamashita against Matt Tremont and Nick Gage. Were you able to catch any of those matches live?
I saw Blue Panther and Ultimo Guerrero. It was great. Yeah. The other ones I haven't seen yet. I actually have links to watch the Hero match and some of the others too, but the Hero match was one that if I got a break, I was going to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to check that out. Sinka is going to be a megastar. It's very similar to the Aja Kong match last year, which also got a lot of rave reviews because Sinka did a great job selling and showing a lot of fire. I mean, last year she got a kick out over to the point that her room was going crazy for her. It just seems like she's got limitless potential, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
So very excited to see where she goes going forward. Any thoughts you had on what you did go to? Because I know you were making the rounds.
I was just going from show to show. There's nothing super blow away. I thought like an Italian Shayna Baszler at the Bloodsport was kind of cool. Blue Panther and Ultimo Guerrero was excellent. It was really a great match. But, the CMLL in Vegas at the Pearl was so different from the CMLL that I see. Not what they did in the ring. That was similar, but just the difference in the crowd. So it was kind of like, I was looking for like an Arena Mexico crowd, and it was nothing, of course, like that in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guys worked hard, and it was a star-laden show. I mean, they brought the stars. But
yeah. I would. What really impressed me, and I read about this in the poll results, is that Panther and Ultimo, their ages add up to almost 120, if I recall correctly, at this point.
65 and 54, so it's 119.
Yeah, 119. Yeah. I thought they worked harder than anyone else all Mania weekend, and it's not saying that like no one else worked hard, but like they were dying in that club. They were not going down without a fight. That attempt to just steal the show. I actually watched a solo match or singles match they had back in January in CMLL down in Mexico, and I thought this one just blew that out of the water in Vegas.
I have seen I think 3 singles matches with them in the last, I don't know if it's a year or so. I mean, they were all similar. I think that they worked I mean the Vegas match was unbelievable. I mean, yeah. it was the best of all of them. But they're all good in this. They're all like really good. Like they're shockingly good. I mean, there's two that I remember that everybody talked about like the day after that they did it, or at least the people, I mean, it had a lot of talking. I mean, this one was similar to them, but I think one step further. But it was the best match I've ever seen with people of that age. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Blue Panther is the best over 60 wrestler of all time. There's not even a doubt in my mind of that one. And Ultimo Guerrero is his perfect opponent. I mean, Ultimo Guerrero is just he's a great worker. I mean, he's like a lot of those guys. They, I mean, they're very underrated in the sense that their ability to make limited people look good, and their timing and where to be and everything like that. I mean, like those guys in the Technicos that are the top stars in Arena Mexico and in CMLL. It's like they have that group of Rudos that are main event Rudos, and it's like I think that they don't get the credit because those guys are just you got to be in the right place for those flying moves and know how to take them, or it actually looks really bad. And Ultimo Guerrero, even at 54, his positioning and things like that is great, and he makes everything safer and makes it look good, and it's just he's amazing too.
Yeah, there was a Blue Panther dive in that Vegas match. Like I forget if he went off the top to the floor or the apron to the floor, but whatever. At his age, he probably shouldn't be doing that. But frankly, with Ultimo Guerrero there, I mean, he made sure he was perfectly safe. Really impressive stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that one false move at that age, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's scary.
It's like I mean, it wasn't just like simple dives. I mean, he was doing like Hurricane Ranas off the apron and things. I mean, stuff that like it was just like, oh my god, it's like it's the stuff you expect Rey Mysterio to do 20 years ago.
Yeah. Like adjusting for age, like there are a couple of spots I was like, once you account for age, this is like Darby level, just flinging yourself around stuff. But yeah, I was really impressed by that. I've already gushed about Cinca. I thought, I know you gave 5 stars to Punk and Reigns. I do think that was a really good match. I think I went either 4.25 or 4.5. Just did not really flirt with like that all-star or all-time classic status for me. But I mean, it was the best part of what was kind of a doldrummy WrestleMania. I feel like
I like night 2. Night 1 I thought was okay, but the commercials just. I mean, it was more the idea of spending so much time on commercials on a $30 a month streaming service that really rubbed me the wrong way. And especially because it was WrestleMania. But I mean, I would have thought that even any show, I would have said the same thing. But the fact it was WrestleMania made it worse because it was like, you have all this talent. And I mean, this is like their big match of the year, right? They've been building their food, in some cases for months, in some cases for weeks. But even so, it's like, this is my match of the year. And then you go there, and it's like you got 7 minutes. And it's just like, 7 minutes is great for, 2 prelim guys at a house show. You know what I'm saying? I mean, on Raw, those guys at that level wouldn't have gotten 7 minutes. They'd have gotten like 12 or 13. And the reason they had the time, I mean, you had 3.5 hours for, we had 4 hours the first night, 3.5 hours the second night. For what was it, 7 matches the first and 6 matches the second. You had plenty of time, but with all those commercials, who got screwed? It was, most of the wrestlers on the show except for the main eventers.
Dave, I kind of want to take this in a little different direction since we're having a conversation about WrestleMania weekend. We know WWE is having their first WrestleMania abroad outside of North America and Saudi Arabia next year. And we got some comments earlier in April from Will Ospreay kind of talking about how AEW should consider taking over WrestleMania weekend because there's kind of a gap in where, like, these independent companies aren't going to Saudi Arabia. AEW historically has tried to stay away from WrestleMania weekend to not associate themselves with it. Is there, one, a realistic opportunity for them to really capitalize on it? And 2, is that something that Tony Khan's going to be wanting to do considering his history with the weekend itself?
That's a tough question. It's a risk because what if fans don't travel for it? Then I mean, it's like they're not going to travel in the numbers that traveled for WWE. So it's not really necessarily worth it for the independent companies. Yes, if you go to and then what city? I mean, let's just say it's, I don't know, what city would you go? What city would you go to? I think Vegas is probably the wrong city at this point. Mm-hmm. If you say like, well, let's go to Los Angeles, that's a cool city. I mean, there's issues in Los Angeles and with the traffic and everything. And where you would go. I mean, they came, I mean, it was years and years and years ago when they came to San Jose and Santa Clara, and there were a ton of independent shows. I think that was right around the time that the independent stuff in conjunction with Mania really got big. New Orleans would be a nice place, obviously. I mean, Dallas was really good. I mean, as far as like, the number of buildings in the area that were like, we were walking distance from place to place. So that was a pretty cool area. But will people go? And man, it's like, I'll just say it's a risk, because if he goes in there, it's like it's a gamble. Plus, it's WrestleMania weekend in the sense that people will want to. They're going to want to watch their WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a bad. Like it'd probably be better to do it like a few weeks earlier or a few weeks later. But if you want to send a message like, hey, you left the country, we're gonna, could it work? I mean, it's like I don't know. It's total. If everybody banded together, could they do something very successful? It's uncharted waters. I don't really have a great answer. I
think they really need a cornerstone event to build off of, and I don't know that they'll have that.
I think one interesting element here is the fact that AEW has been very selective about letting their wrestlers utilize independent dates. But if you kind of co-opt your own weekend like this, it could be almost, for lack of a better term, an AEW sponsored event where, hey, the whole idea is you're going to be able to see a lot of AEW wrestlers wrestling the entire weekend. And maybe that could end up being a selling point where, hey, you're not going to get to see every AEW wrestler on the AEW show, but everybody's going to be involved in all these other independent matches and theoretically make them a bigger draw of the entire weekend, where they're not really doing a ton of WrestleMania weekend stuff as it currently sits anymore.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely something that should be studied. But it's a risk. I mean, like, they'll get a certain number of people, but it's like, what does it take to be considered a success? Like, if you're not going to do two shows, but let's say you do one show and you make it a stadium show, because you almost have to. And let's say you draw 30,000. That's okay. That's okay, right? And I think that the All In Arlington showed that they can do that. But I don't know, like WrestleMania weekend. I mean, when they did Arlington, I mean, WWE threw everything at them that weekend, and they still did very well. So, I mean, but with the 30,000 people going, or 25,000, or 35,000, if it's that number, how many of them go to indies? And the thing is an AEW audience, I think, per capita, is more likely to go to those indie shows. So maybe it would be all right. I mean, if you had like all of the AEW guys, let's just say you had all the stars wrestling on the stadium show, and then you had all the guys, because they have such a deep roster, like you said, and have them wrestle on these different indie shows every single day. I mean, you could give people a lot of unique matches. I mean, it's like the TNA guys obviously would be completely off the board, but you could get, I mean, you could bring up the CMLL crew, the Maple Leaf Wrestling crew, the New Japan, and some of the other Japanese companies, Stardom, Tokyo Joshi Pro. It's absolutely worth discussing. Like it's still a risk.
Yeah, and I know that like St. Louis Anarchy just this past week did not draw well at all, like to the point it might have hurt the promotion permanently. And that's always a risk, just even with Mania week. So I think that's a big point of concern. Latching on to anything else, I thought that back when AEW was doing the Texas residency, because they basically had that building for like 3 weeks uninterrupted or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They might have been ahead if they just basically sublet the building on nights they weren't using it to like CMLL. I remember discussing that with Tyler.
It was talked about. I mean, if you remember in the original perspective, there was going to be a CMLL show, I believe, that week during that run.
Yeah. But like if they had tried to make it like a little mini Mania weekend, like that could have worked out for them. But they didn't go that route. So I don't know. Like it depends on what Tony Khan's goals would be. I mean, I think that there would be hard to measure, but I think a noticeable PR bump from saying, all right, we're going to run an event of some sort Mania weekend here in the States, and making sure it's affordable because TKO ain't dropping ticket prices anytime soon. We both know that.
Yeah, I actually think they may have to. I mean, because their UFC advances and their WWE advances are not that strong, and one of the reasons is the ticket price. I think they may be. I think that for a lot of reasons, economy being what it is, I think they may be forced to. They won't do it. I mean, what they'll probably do is start with the high ticket prices and get the people who are willing to pay it first, and then start dropping it more and more as shows go on, which is essentially what they do anyway.
It's definitely what they did for Mania this year too.
Yeah, they're gonna have. I thought they're gonna have to do that across the board, because I mean, I saw like the next show in Madison Square Garden has 4,000 advance or some number like that. That was just shocking, So and I think that's Saturday Night Main Event too. And it's not just a regular show, but I think that it's a risk worth taking, because the one thing is that if it's successful, it's a news story that's probably in a lot of ways going to be covered a lot more than an AEW pay-per-view. And it'll be covered in a positive way, and it'll be the story that goes out, as long as they don't bomb at the box office. The story is that, hey, this other group took over, and I mean, it's positive PR for AEW if it's successful. If it's not successful, it's like they tried and they they got stomped. But I think at worst it would be mildly successful. But yeah, I mean, because it's been done before, not like this, but in the 80s, WCW, or it wasn't even WCW, it was Jim Crockett Promotions, ran, well, once was WCW, it was 88 and 89, but they ran shows on the same day as WrestleMania, head to head on television versus the pay-per-view. And I mean, the Greensboro was a huge success. New Orleans was not. But I mean, it was successful enough that the cable company said no more and never do it again. But but I just remember, like, in that one, even then it was like the 88 one, which was very successful as far as TV ratings go, is one of the highest rated it was the highest rated non-WWE show, and it went head to head with Mania. And but from of course, it's different media now. The media then didn't give them the time of day, even though Ric Flair and Sting, was up in, did like a 7.8 final quarter and all that stuff, and it was like they got no outside publicity. Even on CNN, they covered WrestleMania, and they didn't cover the TBS show.
Well, speaking of ratings, boy, the Nielsen ratings, you hear about this, folks? You hear about this? They are just spiraling over at Nielsen headquarters, it feels like, just trying to figure out a way to measure things so that everyone's happy. And I don't think anyone's ever going to be happy with it. And now we're almost on a year now of just like nearly useless data.
I mean, it's just really weird. And, they just had another change, and this one looks bad for wrestling, so they had a change in a couple of in January 26th, which was good for wrestling, but not quite as good as it was before. And it's hard to make sense, because these things that should be very minor changes to tweak things better, when it comes to wrestling, for whatever reason, end up being these gigantic changes that make no sense. You just can't have drops like that or increases like that out of the blue. It's just not, and in the weirdest places, it was like with AEW, it's like, well, they just got not killed, but they got taken down greatly in 18 to 49, but goddamn 50 to 54, it's like the number's ridiculously high, and it's
this week's Observer issue. Yeah. Like, it's just a ridiculous increase.
Yeah, it's ridiculous increases and ridiculous decreases. Plus, the other thing with the weakness of the ratings is that, again, I mean, how many people are watching that thing on HBO Max? We don't get the number, and that's just that changes the entire number. So it's like the actual knowledge that we can pick up from the ratings now, I mean, there is stuff you can pick up, but it's not nearly as much as it would have been 2 years ago, where the TV was the only thing that was that where you could watch it and you'd get the quarters and things like that. And they had a system that they didn't vary from. So you can kind of really learn a lot. Now it's like there's stuff you can learn, but there's all these asterisks. It's like, well, what about this? And what about this? And then back then, when I would get the numbers, they really did all make sense. I mean, there were some variations where sometimes you go like, yeah, that's kind of weird, but overall they made sense. And now, I mean, I could say that, like, you know, they don't make sense. So it's like, and then the thing is like, how do you, if you're Tony Khan, how do you evaluate them? It's almost like you kind of take the good number and get happy, and when it's a bad number, you try to say it's the system's fault, and you probably learn from crowd reactions at the live show, which is good, but it's not the be all end all either. So it's like you're, you know, from a marketing standpoint, you know, I mean, like, again, you know, the ratings used to be what you would look at and determine like who's over, who's not over, and all that. And it's like there's so many variations that it's not reliable enough, I guess is the best way to put it.
So if you were in that position, if you were in charge for WWE or AEW and you were charged with, you know, using the data available to you to determine who is a draw and who isn't at this point in time, like, what would you use if that was entirely your job?
I mean, it's hard because I would say like merchandise sales, but you know that there's guys who sell lots of merchandise or guys who don't sell a lot of merchandise that actually are over, you know, for various reasons, and that are, you know, should be on top, even if they aren't the greatest merchandise sellers. But that, I mean, you can't really do live shows because the reality is it's the brand and not the main event. Sometimes, like with AEW, I think that if you like would announce a match, like on a pay-per-view, if you announce a match, I think it helps if it's the right match and doesn't help if it's the wrong match. Pay-per-view buy rates for AEW, you still have that. For WWE, I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, merchandise is a big thing there. I mean, you do get the they do get the Netflix numbers. I don't even know what they get from ESPN. I think they get it though, but the problem with ESPN is it's so limited. But yeah, there's way more numbers than there ever was, and you can probably learn way less from them than ever before in a lot of ways.
It just seems like a real.
They're less. What's the word I'm looking for? Reliable. They're less reliable than before. Yeah.
And I find that to be a really interesting thing here, Dave, because when you have the conversation about where AEW is from a popularity standpoint, so much of what you've historically based things on are ratings and ticket sales. And yes. I think the interesting part about Darby Allin as champion, we only have a few weeks sample size, but ticket sales are looking really good. The ratings have been positive. And when you compare to kind of past champions, we really haven't seen a really large spike. So my question for you is, how much of this little spike that we're seeing is due to either Darby Allin, the fact that there's new blood in the title picture for the first time in seemingly forever, or is this just a result of the real goodwill and really good television that AEW has built over like the past 6 to 9 months? It's an interesting discussion point because it's too small of a sample to really know, but we can kind of opine about what that trend looks like.
Well, the show where he won the title, and so that would be, you know, his match was certainly like the key in that one. Did pretty well with viewers. It did not do so great with 18 to 49, but did ridiculous with 50 to 54s. What that means, you know, again, we're back to things. In this last week, you know, everything was down for a variety of reasons, you know, and there is playoffs, but they also, you know, like the collision number was the one that really, you know, I looked at that and go, oh my God, this new system we're going back to the old system, because that collision number was, you know, they went from 20th place the week before, or the previous, not the week before, it was 2 weeks before on Saturday. So they were, because the 1 week they were on, the Mania week they were on Thursday. So like I believe it's the 11th, I think that's the Saturday, right? They were the 11th, where they were in like 20th place, but then the 25th, which was right after Darby won, they were in 58th place. And it was just like, you don't vary that much when they were similar level shows. Both were very good wrestling shows without giant matches, but they're the same shows. And they probably had tougher competition, but everyone, if you got the NBA playoffs, multiple games in NHL, right? So it was tougher, but it's like, that's the placings. The placings don't matter. Like your placing should be the same. Like your number could be down, but you should still be in 20th place, right? Because everybody else has the same competition you do, that's not the NHL and the NBA. So, but I think that's a different, they figured it out. They're doing it differently again. But that one kind of looked, and I looked at that one and was just like, oh boy, we're, and that's not Darby's fault or anything. I would say this, like, we can't really judge anything on Darby because the system is too, it's too unreliable right now. I mean, like in months or a month or whatever, when there's more of a pattern, perhaps I don't like credit or fault Darby at this point. It's too early.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to have the title long because the way they're booking him, it feels like they're going to do the fighting champion burns himself out fast story.
They may.
Which they kind of did with on a longer stretch, but with Orange Cassidy with the international championship a couple years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, but he had a long reign though.
It was a long one. Yeah, I just feel like with Darby that they're just like, all right, you're going to go for like 6 or 8 weeks or something and like have killer matches on every Dynamite, and then the story's going to be that you just essentially run out of gas. I guess we'll see, but I don't know. It kind of feels like that's where the booking is trending right now, at least.
I agree. I mean, I certainly am sensing more and more the idea that it might be Ospreay and Omega at All In. And
I think it seems right.
If that's the case, I don't see. I would probably see it going to. If that's it, I would kind of see the direction of the title going Allin to MJF to Omega, the way he avenges the loss to MJF, and then to Ospreay. Who should be the guy at that point, so yeah, I mean, it limits how long, if you're going in that direction, it kind of limits Darby's length of his reign by a lot. And then here's the thing. MJF was doing really well as champion, but I think that they wanted for probably a year to get the thing on Darby just because of, I think that it's just been a story that they've been building and wanting, and he's worked so hard and everything. So it was great moment to do it, but it wasn't the time for a long title reign. And maybe, it could be one of those things like, you guys probably remember the first time Edge won the title in WWF. Yeah. It's like the ratings went way up, but the plan was like, he's going to be whatever it was, 3-week, 4-week champion, right? That was the plan. They didn't change the plan. WrestleMania wasn't that far off, but it opened the door for him to win it many more times. When he won it the first time, he probably was just like, well, we're going to do this Money in the Bank cash, and we don't even know what it is yet because it was so early in the Money in the Bank game. And but the ratings were so high that it enabled them. It put him in that position with the Cenas and everything, where you're gonna, because they were changing the title a lot more then, where you're going to get multiple title reigns. Whereas before, I think that it was probably he'll get his one reign. It's 3 weeks. He's Edge. You know what I mean? He's not a top guy, so you can be planned for a 3-week run. Harley Race was another one like that, where you do so well in that short run, whether it's 3 weeks or 7 weeks or whatever, that, okay, now when we're booking 2027, 2028, you're big enough to be in that mix again, rather than just your Jake Hager, right? When he had to run in WWE when it was over, there was never going to be a second one.
I want to ask you as well, Dave, about kind of the AEW title picture as a whole. It feels really reinvigorated with Darby, and the MJF run was excellent, but the stipulation with Hangman Page kind of casts an interesting cloud over the entire conversation, because the lead up to Hangman winning both of those titles, there was a lot of interest. There was a lot, you could kind of point tangibly to business being good. But then when he had those titles, business really didn't take a step forward in either reign. It just kind of stayed relatively afloat. So from my perspective, I don't really see Hangman Page as this difference-making draw as a champion for AEW. Do you think that kind of hypothesis might have led to Tony Khan deciding, hey, maybe we try this no title stipulation with Hangman Page and kind of see if that can reinvigorate the character?
I don't know. I'm against any stipulation that has a forever tangible part to it, because you never know, especially in a business where, there's lots of injuries and everything like that, and he still is one of the most popular guys. So I was like very negative on that. He did pretty decent as a pay-per-view draw though. But yeah. I mean, like, you got to remember with the decline, that was during that September period where they changed the ratings around. So it's like, it's really hard to compare at that point. But yeah, I think the house shows really started showing signs of life. Yeah, probably with MJF. I mean, because the house shows, they were struggling at the house shows. They still are, but it is better, But and some of that, I think, too, is more and more going to the smaller, like 1,000-seat building is too small in my mind. 1,500 is too small. You can sell it out, but what does it mean? I think that the 3,000 is probably like that's probably the perfect size, because you can sell it out or come close and you get that great atmosphere, but on TV it doesn't look so minor league. Like Sacramento to me, with the sellout in Sacramento, to me, like that was like what the size of the building and the kind of a crowd that you want for AEWs. In Sacramento, like it's about a 4,000-seat building that for AEW television you would cut to about right at 3. And I thought that it looked great on TV. It sounds great in a smaller building. The wrestlers get that high from the good crowd. Yeah. And it doesn't look like, when they went to the 2,300 arena, which I think, it was a great experiment to do. But in hindsight, you look like TNA in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Kind of a follow-up here to the entire conversation, because one of the things when Cody ended up doing that stipulation was, well, we've seen plenty of promotions really go against their stipulations. Will AEW be one of those promotions, or will they keep it? I don't think we really got to find out that answer, because Cody ended up going to WWE. But Fred and I had talked about it at the time, and I think I figured out a potential way for them to get out of it. And I kind of want your opinion on the idea, because I think the only way you might be able to get out of it without actually having people criticize you a lot is kind of do the Will Ospreay long title reign arc with the babyface bravado of the only guy he's never beaten is Hangman Page, because he's never faced Hangman Page.
I actually like that. I like that idea a lot. It's a way to get out of it. Yeah. Because it's a tricky one, because the babyface has to go against his word, and the promotion has to go against what they advertised as the stipulation, which was why, that show did such a great pay-per-view number. I mean, the reason was because the stipulation was so extreme, and people thought that, like, they really aren't going to have Page lose with the stip. And Page's promos were so strong that listening to him, you go like, hey, he can't lose. But then there's the other part of you where you go like, I know he's not winning it back. So I think that intrigue did help the pay-per-view number, but it put them, kind of put some booking behind the 8 ball. Luckily, Ospreay's back, and Omega is working more. And Darby, is now at that world champion level and things like that, to where Page is not because I think last year Page was absolutely crucial. He was just crucial to that company. And now it's like, he's important and he's part of that top cast and everything like that. But him not headlining the pay-per-view doesn't mean, oh my God, like pay-per-view numbers are going to struggle without him without him as the top babyface. So, but yeah, that's a good storyline now. I could see that one. At the same time, it's like that never challenge for the title stipulation. It's not something like, you kill the stip, but honest to God, I wish they would never do that stip. It didn't work with Cody. I don't think that it really, it did help a buy rate with Page, but I just thought that like the aftermath, it's like, I don't think that you should be doing a stip that you can't live up to. And if they do live up to it, it handicaps booking the Page a lot because he's a main event world title caliber guy. If it was a guy who, let's just say, you really never wanted to be in the title picture again, I suppose you could do it. I mean, in the old days, I could see you do it with someone who's leaving the territory, so let's do it. And then if he comes back to the territory in 5 years, everyone will forget anyway.
Mm-hmm. But I think it worked really well with Tim Storm when he challenged Nick Aldis for the 10 pounds of gold, 6-7 years ago during the peak of power. That made sense because he was kind of aging out and It was probably time for new blood. But this one felt a little weird from a timing standpoint, which is why I feel like there's some kind of long-term angle in play, which is how I came across the idea of the babyface bravado angle.
Yeah, hope so.
Yeah, but that I mean, with Tyler's idea, I think I don't like it. Not that Tyler has the idea. It's not that I hate Tyler's idea. I hate that they kind of put themselves in the position where that's like the one path to not making AEW or Hangman Page a heel. And not like in a good way. Like Hangman Page obviously has had a good heel run not too long ago, but I don't think you want to be, the guy who just lies about stipulations and undercuts anything that you ever are put in again. I just think that the benefit they're going to get from this paying off is not going to be enough to, justify the risk.
Yeah. I mean, I was against it from the start. I mean,
yeah.
I was against it with Cody. I mean, with Cody, it felt...
it was a disaster with Cody.
I mean, the one thing with Cody, it didn't work at all. It didn't even help the buy rate. They did a bad number, which was probably just the people, at that time weren't ready for so many AEW pay-per-views. It wasn't established enough yet, even though a lot of people were watching on television. They're far more established now. It's like a regular thing. We watch their pay-per-views. Back then they were, the first one was unique, but they were were they the second? They were the third, right? The Full Gear.
I think so.
Yeah, whatever it was, but I guess that it wasn't as strong or whatever. Jericho and Cody, and I thought their promos were awesome building up that pay-per-view.
It was a good build, yeah.
Yeah, but it just wasn't, whatever it was, it wasn't the right mix, as compared to most of the other pay-per-views. And you did that extreme stip. I think that people probably then, honestly, probably just figured, just bullshit, because that's what they grew up on, stips all being broken. So it's like they do this stip, it's like, it's bullshit. Now with Page, what I think made it work is the fact that Cody never did challenge for the title.
Yeah. Of course, I think you can draw a line directly from that stipulation to the weirdness of the Codyverse in AEW and kind of the really either. And especially the last year or so, from the David Otunga feud on was just really awkward. All of it was really awkward.
David Otunga, it was the boxer.
No, sorry. Anthony Ogogo. Yeah,
Anthony
my bad.
Ogogo,
Sorry,
yeah.
I got stuck on the letter O. My bad. But yeah, that was a disaster of a feud that just did not work at all. And then everything else from Cody and in his storylines, it was already kind of weird because he just wasn't associating at all with the Young Bucks or Kenny Omega, who of course or Adam Page, the whole elite coming in thing. But then it just really kind of spun out of control there, and it's kind of astonishing to look back at that. From where he went in that last year with AEW to instantly walking into WWE and being their top full-time star.
It was crazy. People thought that he's going to go there and be a mid-carder, and Vince, give Vince credit for that vision. Vince had that storyline of chasing the title your dad never won, and it worked
really well.
It was a huge success. Yeah, and he went from a guy in AEW. He was a star who was pushed, but
he was never the top guy.
You can't compare him to the Cody Rhodes in WWE, even though it's they didn't even change his character. Same suit and tie, same
everything,
look, same promo, same entrance music. But in WWE, it was just he was positioned as the guy at a time when they really, I guess the fans there were probably clamoring for a guy. Plus, it's I think he benefited so much in WWE from being the first guy to leave AEW because those fans were kind of conditioned that AEW is the bad guy and Cody's there. And he came to our team, and the storyline connected. And I mean, I'd have never thought that Cody, until it happened, I would have never thought of Cody as being that level of a star. And I always thought he'd be a star, but not that level. It was, because he's, I mean, it's Cody and Roman Reigns and Punk are really, the three biggest stars, I would say right now. And, and at times Cody was the biggest of the three for at certain points.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that we're, building off of that, I think we're in a really interesting situation with the interplay between AEW and WWE in that we've had the period where like people were going from WWE to AEW for bigger spots. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. And then we've had the period where people jumped the other way from AEW to WWE. And initially, I mean, obviously the Cody was the first one, and that was a huge success for them. And now we're in the period where like there's been other successes like CM Punk, obviously, but I mean, I think
he's unique. Though.
Special circumstances for sure.
Yeah.
I think you can probably say that there's been some middling returns. With Ricky Saints. I thought he would.
A little early to judge on him, but I know what you're saying. I mean,
he's been a year in NXT as kind of a not mid card, but like secondary main event, like not really the guy there, which is real. I thought he would have took it by storm, frankly. And I'm not knocking his performance or anything from what I've seen. It just wasn't used that way, which was interesting. I think Blake Monroe, Mariah May has definitely not worked out the way you might have thought, given the Tony Storm thing.
Rusev and Aleister Black to me are the ones that.
And Ray Phoenix too. Like Ray Phoenix is.
Ray Phoenix, absolutely.
You could have told me he fell into a volcano 6 months ago, and I wouldn't have any reason to not believe you.
Ray Phoenix was Ray Phoenix and Dragon Lee. There's history, and you should learn from history. And some people think history doesn't apply to them, but like Ray Phoenix and Dragon Lee, to me, when they both made those decisions, I thought like.
They're not very WWE performers.
I don't think you understand what they do there and what your strengths are because it's not really compatible, even though those guys can be awesome. It's like their strength is something other than what WWE has. So you're kind of, but yeah, I thought like when Penta and Phoenix were leaving, it's like, I know your brothers and you want to do it. And I thought like Penta, go, you've got super charisma, you know what I mean? You go. But everyone be smart, Ray Phoenix and Annie, kind of burned a bridge on the way out too. And it's just like, what are you doing? You're going to be in bad shape there. I mean, not that he was knocking him dead in AEW, but Ray Phoenix was a guy who Tony would put in a 15, 20-minute match with a top guy. He would do great. He could get some wins here and there. He wouldn't be buried, to where he's doing 5-minute matches and only putting people over, Ray Phoenix wasn't the right fit for WWE.
Yeah, he would have been in like the Mike Bailey spot. Like the guy that you or Mark Briscoe, even like the guy you dial up for like a really great 15-minute, middle dynamite match or a strong collision main event. And he would have been featured regularly. Like Dragon Lee, I mean, at least he's gotten some pushes, like not big ones, but at least like, little buddy of AJ Styles is something, which is more than you can say for, I think you could say for Ray Phoenix.
You're right. Yeah. Ray Phoenix hasn't gotten really anything. I mean, he came in and they just
had a little bit, like 2 months. And then they were like, oh, wait, we forgot what you were.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance Malakai Black goes back to AEW? Because I just feel like that's like there's a big blinking sign that's just like disaster if they do that.
I don't know it's a disaster, but I don't know. I mean, it'd be if he came in and the thing is you'd have to come in and lose a lot, but then if you do that, you're kind of like, well, why bring him back?
Value. Yeah.
It's like I don't know. I haven't talked to Tony about him at all, and and I don't think he would say anything one way or the other anyway. I don't rule it out, but like if I was in that position, would I do it? But then again, I wouldn't have done Andrade, and Andrade's been a big success. So it's like you you don't know. Of course, Andrade's also a lot better wrestler than Black.
Yeah. And I'm going to steal something from Joe Lanza and Rich Craich on the Flagship. This is entirely their things, but so credited. But like their thing is that Andrade is just always unhappy unless he's getting a huge push.
Yeah.
Malakai was kind of uniquely unhappy in AEW, as
and he was getting a good push.
Oh, he wasn't jobbing for anyone.
It just felt like he didn't respect the promotion from the outside looking in.
Yeah, that's how I describe it.
I think Rusev too. Those two to me were very similar in the sense of I think Punk too. Although Punk was a top guy in AEW, I didn't really notice it with Punk until really that
the second run.
The interview. The interview that started all the problems.
Oh yeah.
When he did the line of Adam Page has never done anything in this business, and it's like he's been a world champion in your company that's only had a few, 4 world champions, whatever the number was at that time, and successful at it, and one of the most popular guys. And it's like, okay, you consider, and I again, people that grow up in a certain way. I'll give you an example. When Roddy Piper, who I talked to a lot when he was in WCW, right? Roddy Piper never respected WCW. Even when WCW was beating WWE, he didn't respect WCW. He respected Jim Crockett. He respected Don Owens, growing up. You know what I mean?
He probably would have died for Don Owens.
Yeah, he was very loyal to Don Owens. But the thing is like, in his mind, after he had done this, the world to him was, who's main eventing Madison Square Garden? He'd always say that, ever main event Madison Square Garden. And it's like, your company can't go to Madison Square Garden. It's still winning the war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to him, it's like, and I think even like Nash and those guys, I think that like when they were in WCW, I always sense that they thought, well, really, Vince is really the guy, and WWF is really the major league. We're doing good here, but and it's like, and I sort of sensed Punk like that in the sense that I don't think he really respected AEW in that way. And I think, the guys that I was always, the guys that I would always think would be the guys that, like, I don't know, like, Black did come through the indies, and he did come through it with, guys who, that generation of guys that Black came through it with, most of those guys did respect AEW. But for whatever reason, part of it was that he got fired, and then, Levesque got in charge, and he thought, it's like now
all likes me.
That it's all new, and I go there, and then he went there, and it was like, they used him a lot worse. And Rusev was the same. Rusev, I really sense with Rusev that he was fine as long as he was winning. You know what I mean? Yeah. But once he got asked to lose, I think that he wasn't fine. Even though in WWE, the last year, all he did was lose. And it was like, I don't know if it was, I don't want to hurt my market value to go back because I think I can go back. And then it just turned into, just a completely negative thing. And then he goes back, and then look what he's done. I mean, it's like, I would have thought he would have done better, just if nothing else, to show people that, like, hey, you AEW guys, come here and you're going to be bigger stars. And instead, like, with Black and with Rusev, it's kind of like the messages is like,
no guarantees.
Yeah, you think the grass is always greener. It's like, it's a risk. It might be better. It might not be.
Yeah. And Ray Phoenix too is another good example of that, to get back to that. But yeah, the comparison for me with Malakai Black and Rusev is that Hogan period of TNA when like Booker T and Rob Van Dam got brought in, and very much felt like, again, us someone on the outside, I'm not going to pretend I knew what was going on, really, but like it felt like they're just like, all right, I'm cashing a check, and
absolutely,
I'm here,
I think in TNA, a lot of the guys had that idea.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to say Black and Rusev worked hard when they were on TV, but like the comparison I'm trying to draw is the lack of kind of respect in a way for the company you're working for.
Well, I mean, it was like with Booker T, just an example, right? I always felt Booker T in TNA, it was like, I'm biding time until I go back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And he retired like a year later or something, like, so.
Yeah. But I think that's it. And I think that with them, It was like, okay, I have a job, kind of like Regal. I have a job until I go back. It wasn't like Danielson came in or Moxley, and it was like their commitment was completely to AEW, even though Danielson could have gone back anytime. And if he was unhappy, he probably would have, but he wasn't. He bonded very well with Tony. Moxley probably was AEW or die. Whereas these other guys, I think it was, okay, I need a job, but the place is WWE. And when you have that attitude, you're not going to be a team player.
Yeah. One other person I wanted to ask you about to completely jump off the U.S. wrestling scene is Aaron Wolf, who I've been kind of fascinated with ever since he debuted in New Japan and has been in this really weird pattern, I guess. You want to talk about that? Like, I could just set it up like that and just let you go.
Well, I mean, he had all that hype for his first match, and Evil did such a great job. The first match, I thought the first match was a big success. But when I saw it, and everyone's raving, oh my God, this guy's going to be so great, and it was just like, it's really all Evil. It's all, it's all Evil. And then the next day at the Dash, where they were afraid to put him in the ring, and it's like, oh my God, he's worse than I thought from those, because those run-ins were so horrible. You know what I mean? It was like no fire and just whatever. But he seemed to have fire with Evil, but so much of that was Evil. So anyway, so then it's just like, man, now, but it's like he's still a major celebrity, and he's an Olympic gold medalist in judo, which is like a real fighting sport. And it's like then they start beating him, and it's like, why? It's like, protect him. Maybe you can't put him in a 30-minute main event, of course. But so why don't you just have him win 4-minute matches? He can do that. And the booking, I thought the booking was just atrocious for him. And now he's just a guy. You know what I mean? He's a guy in the mid card who isn't very good. That's what he is, as opposed to being a superstar who isn't very good, which we've had a million superstars in wrestling that have been successful that actually weren't very good, because they were booked carefully. And even in Japan with the judo guys, it's like, it's a different generation, but Giesink, he was terrible, but he was a star his entire run in All Japan, not having good matches because he was an Olympic gold medalist and because they just didn't beat him. It is a different world of wrestling now than in the 70s too, though. In the 70s, it was all about wins and losses, and so much so if you won all your key matches, you were a star. Now it's so much about performance, and people don't care as much about wins and losses. So you do have to be better, but you can still protect guys,
Yeah, and especially because they were doing it with the House of Torture, like that's just a smoke and mirrors act entirely.
Yeah,
I don't understand why they didn't just lean into that with him. But I've heard some rumors that he may not have made a, this is all speculation that I've got, but it may have been a bad impression that he left on people over there. And
well, there's something to that for sure. Yeah. But so what? It's like it wasn't like he made a bad impression, but it wasn't like to throw out CM Punk and AEW. You know what I mean? Where it's something like, okay, we have a problem here. Now what do we do?
He wasn't, grabbing a pair of scissors, stabbing people or anything, Big Van Vader.
Yeah, he wasn't hurting anything. It was just like, like a lot of people, it's like you come in and you're a superstar in your sport. There's guys that try out in WWE that come in and have, issues where, hey, I'm, you get a top level football player or something, ever since junior high, you're probably coddled, right? So you go into WWE and oh hell, I'm a better athlete. I'm a better athlete than any of these guys, or maybe, a Gable Steveson, is probably the perfect example of this. I'm so much better at that, but it's a different world and you're not good. And, you're going to rub people the wrong way. I think the same thing happened with Steveson, but Steveson, Stevenson's a different issue. He had his own set of problems.
Yeah. He sucked as a performer and seemingly as a person. So
yeah. Well, Aaron Wolf, there's similarities there. I don't want to say Aaron Wolf's a terrible person or anything, but there's a similarity.
The Aaron Wolf thing a little bit reminds me of when Mystico came into WWE, and there were, the reports that he was carrying himself like he was a big deal, which he was. He was a massive star in Mexico. And they're like, well, that's why you hired him. And they're like, yeah, but he should not act like he's a big star. It's like, I don't know what to tell you guys. You hired someone.
That was a total misfire. That, like, before it happened, I knew exactly what would happen. I warned them. I said, like, this is what's going to happen, and it was just like, it's WWE. They don't care about that stuff. It's just like, I mean, it's and again, you take a guy like this, Mystico would be very different than the Mystico then. You're talking about a guy who, geez, so Mystico's 42, right? So his big run was 21 years ago. So he's 21. He gets into pro wrestling or lucha libre. Probably a teenager, and then at 21, all of a sudden it explodes. Right place, right time. I mean, it wasn't like he was great. He was just right place, right time, and explodes for a couple of years. And so that's all he knows. So he goes. Conan was the same way the first time he went to WWE, when he was just exploded in Mexico and went to WWE, and they, hey, you're not a star, and he would go like, oh, look at what I did in LA. You know what I mean? And Mystico was just like, all these people, you've never proven anything. And in his mind, it's like, I'm one of the biggest draws in the whole world,
Yeah, it was I was pretty casual at that point, but it was just wild to read about that whole situation and see what happened, with him, and how he was used. It just kind of feels like the WWE really wants a Latino star and does not have a great idea of how to do that.
I mean, they want another Ray, and Ray's a big success, but they never. I mean, Ray was unique in the sense they never really got behind Ray. The fans got behind Ray. Ray is like, it was like Jeff Hardy. I mean, it's like they in the office when they had Jeff Hardy, it wasn't like, oh my God, we got this guy and he can appeal to like kids. Let's go all the way with him. It's like, no, the fans said, let's go with him. And it's kind of like, all right, we know he can't be a top guy, but we'll let him. We'll humor the fans, right? And then he still gets over. I mean, like he was more over than Cena at one point, and I understand, believe me, I 100% understand why they went with Cena and not him, and they never let him top Cena, even though his merch and his overall popularity was well ahead at the time. But they knew Cena wasn't going to be a problem, and Jeff was. But it's the same thing. So,
Dave, we want to be respectful of your time, and you've already given us an hour, and we're incredibly appreciative. And this has been a great conversation. One of the last things I want to talk about is kind of the emergence of Thekla and AEW. One thing it happens all across the realm of sports per se, where people are really copycat acts. Once you see something, then you try to emulate it. And Tekla's energy is so different from anything that we've really seen in American women's wrestling, because everything about her comes off so authentic. There's no like promo school. There's no acting. It just feels like she is presenting herself like herself. And you can probably equate that to her never really participated in American wrestling before coming to AEW. Do you see this as a potential for younger wrestlers to maybe start to emulate that aspect? And could that in turn be a really nice boom for women's wrestling in general?
Yeah, she's done well. Better than I think anyone expected.
Oh yeah.
But you're right. It's the unique kind of off character. The promos are different. And in the ring, that aggressive thing. I think in AEW more than WWE. I think that the women that get over are the hard hitting, aggressive types. Because again, that's an audience that wants hard hitting wrestling. So she had that going for her. The women that come from, because Stardom's such a hard hitting promotion anyway. I think the women that come from Stardom are way, way, way more apt to transfer positively to AEW than WWE. Because with WWE, what we've seen, especially like, Julia, just for example, you go to WWE and like, I can't hit people this hard. I have to change my style. So you lose your authenticity. Mm-hmm. Whereas in AEW, you don't have that mentality. It's like, just bring it. We're just like the guys and we're going to be aggressive. And that's, you know what I mean? Whereas instead of we need, I'm not trying to say that women need to be feminine, but they don't.
It's a different house style.
It's a different house style. It's not about hard hitting. And when you like make your name in a place that's hard hitting, you have to completely change because you don't want to potato someone and get the rep of being not knowing how to work, so to speak. So you tone it down and then you're not yourself. You know what I mean? I think that's Blake Monroe, another example. You know what I mean? Like Blake Monroe was good in AEW, but I mean the WWE in the ring wrestler Blake Monroe is not, the same as AEW at all. I didn't think.
I'm willing to chalk up the Mariah May difference to like not being with partnered with Tony Storm.
That's part of it
think.
Too. Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. On this note, one thing that caught my eye with the releases last week from WWE is Tamara Mensah-Stock, Tyra May Steele getting released. She of course is a former gold medalist in freestyle wrestling, and it just feels like that's not something WWE is looking for. Do you think there's any chance that, like, if she wanted to, and I don't know if she's going to want to, that's always the question with someone that came straight into like the ID pro or the WWE ID program, if they're going to continue in wrestling afterwards. But do you think like it just? I guess my question is like, do you just think there's some kind of path that could be developed to reopen the legitimate athlete to pro wrestling pipeline? Because it feels like that's kind of got shut down over the past 20 years. And I think it'd be beneficial to have that open somehow again.
I mean, it's definitely a different mentality. I mean, I see it all the time, like with, even in AEW, you know what I mean? Where, like I always see, Toa Leona, because I've seen the Toa Leona character in the 80s. And I'm not saying he would be a superstar there, but my God, like if Bill Watts or Jim Ross in his prime or whatever was there, they would emphasize the football. They would emphasize the powerlifting. You know what I mean? They would, like a Dr. Death, right? He wasn't a football player. Dr. Death was not even close, or the wrestler, but powerlifter wise, he's a really accomplished, super strong guy. And now it's like, I didn't even know about his powerlifting until Danielson in commentary just kind of casually goes, this guy can bench press 600 pounds. It's like, and so I'm listening going like, yeah, bullshit. You know what a 600-pound bench press is? Doug Furness could only do a 600-pound bench press, and he was like one of the strongest men in the world. And I looked it up and it's like, this guy did like a 630-pound bench press. It's like, he's like freaking like Bruno Sammartino, strong and stronger. But we don't even know it because it's
not featured
anymore. But so as far as Tamara Mensah-Stock, I think it's up to her. I think if I am her and I want to do pro wrestling and I really want to do it, I absolutely contact Stardom and go like, okay, I'm not going to make a ton of money, but I'm going to get good at this, and that's the place to go to get good. And I think that Stardom would take her as an Olympic gold medalist because in Japan, that means a lot more in the United States to the fans.
Yeah.
And, again, there's no guarantee she'll make it, but it's probably the place to go. And if she does do well there, obviously it opens the door to AEW, right? So I think that's if she wants, because going on the indies, she could do it. I don't know that she will. It's not that kind of her improvement wouldn't be as accelerated as just going like, hey, I want to be good at this. I mean, she could go to Mexico and get lots of work if she could break in and they would take her. But I don't know that style is so conducive and the people she would work with are good enough to where she would have that accelerated learning curve. But every woman wrestler that I know that went to Stardom, always raves about it for the fact that, like if your level goes up. And I think that's so for her, if she wants to do it, that's what she should do. Because I don't see her walking into AEW at her level right now. And even with the gold medal, what do you really do with her? Because again, the gold medal doesn't mean as much to this wrestling fan group as it would to 70s wrestling fan. Oh my God, Olympic gold medalist, you'd be a main eventer. Even if you weren't good, if you had that gold medal. And now, absolutely, it doesn't mean much at all. It really doesn't.
Yeah, which is wild to think about, but that's where we are as an industry, I guess. Yeah. Dave, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Let's get your plugs in for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, just WrestlingObserver.com and the Wrestling Observer newsletter comes out every week. And go through the, everything that's going on in wrestling. And Fred, I want to thank you so much for all the help that you have done, when it comes to the awards and just looking at stats and everything. It's like, it's so helpful. I mean, it's like, it really, like, for Hall of Fame voting and stuff, man, it's not the be all end all, but it's
it's definitely not.
But it's like to me, it's a super important tool, because the one thing is that, as you go through different stages of life, your perspective changes. And in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, and me included, and it's what I always fight against, is the perspective of, nostalgia is so high. And so it's like a guy, like, as far as like Hall of Fame voting, right? Like, there will be people who will want the 50th best wrestler of their childhood ahead of the 3rd or 4th best wrestler of their adulthood. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, that's when it was real. When you first start watching, that's when it was real. Kevin Sullivan used to always tell me that. That's when it was real. But it's like, I have the perspective of knowing that when I started watching the old, because I sat in the second row and the first row people, all they did was talk about, oh, this stuff is so garbage, but they were there every week. But it's like the real wrestlers were Luthez and Leo Namalini, right? And while I'm watching, Ray Stevens and Pat Patterson, who are freaking awesome, going like, I don't have anything to compare them with, but they're great. But they're, and it's like, and it's the same thing every generation. It's like nobody can now we're at the nobody can be better than Shawn Michaels era. And it's like, it's really not that way. Nothing against Shawn Michaels. I mean, he was, anyone who's great in their era is great, right? Even if it doesn't look great on tapes watching now, you were great in your era in some way, shape, or form, then you're great. But what the thing is like, with the research that you do, it's like I can look and go like, this guy was like top in this era way more than this guy in another era. Like there'll be people who will like go like, the Young Bucks say they're no good, right? And I'll look and I'll go like, like, forget about the matches, throw that out. It's like dominant in your era. You know what I mean? It's like nobody had tag team longevity except for the Briscoes and maybe, when Mark and Jay, and maybe Dory Terry Funk, because
Rock and Roll Express, maybe
not the Rock and Rolls, but the Midnight Express did.
But they were only a few years. Midnight Express, really?
Yeah, well, they two different forms, I guess. So they were like 4 or 5 years, and they were the Young Bucks are special because they've just it's been completely
like 20 years or 40
yeah.
Years. Yeah. I mean, like there's no, when you think about that, it's like, yeah, they have longevity, but people will think of like the Road Warriors. Now they had longevity, and it's like Road Warriors were super hot. I mean, they were super hot for a couple of years, and they were around after. But I mean, if you talk about like,
they disappeared a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Animal was out for a long time. And then when they did their comeback, I mean, really, they weren't very good when they did their comeback. Yeah.
Like 90s Road Warriors had some moments, but it was definitely not what the 80s was. Yeah, you're getting dangerously close to encouraging a Sin Limite situation here, Dave, because that is the dream for me to just do like a 3-hour podcast with you. But yeah, like I'm working on my, it's greatest wrestler ever, 100 greatest wrestlers ever.
Oh man, that's brutal.
I'm working on my ballot right now, and like this is what I'm going through, and I know I have these massive blind spots of like pre-2017 Joshi. I don't know super well. Dragon Gate outside of like the past 3 or 4 years, I don't know great. Shoot style is not a area I've watched very much of at all, and I'm just like, even with what I do know, it's like, all right, so where do I put Mark Briscoe in comparison to Akira Hokuto? Like it's kind of
I would put Akira Hokuto higher, but I don't know.
Yeah, I've watched probably 5 Akira Hokuto matches in my life, and 4 of them were this week, and so it's kind of hard to just like put in that context, and it's. But nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and that's always going to be a problem with any kind of now versus then comparison. You kind of have that with basketball, with people who grew up with Kobe Bryant as the big star, even though he was never the best player in the NBA when you really look at it, are like, oh, LeBron's not as good as Kobe. And it's, if you try to look at it objectively, it's a completely insane take, but like the marketing machine was there for Kobe, and then you have Kobe's tragic death and all this, and I mean, like it's a really, like I grew up. Owen Hart was my favorite wrestler when I was growing up, when I was a kid, and obviously I stopped watching for a few years mainly because he died, and so now I'm looking at this list like, how do I fairly rank Owen Hart? Who, even when you watch him now, it obviously sticks out as a fantastic performer, but like, what is that compared to Tam Nakano or Hiroki Goto? Like, it's just really,
that's hard.
It's kind of a silly exercise, but I do say that lists make my brain release the good chemicals, so it's just kind of fun at the same time. So, and when it comes to the win shares for the Observer Awards, like, I think it's a great tool to kind of get an idea of how to, like, it's not, like you said, it's not the end all be all. I would never present it like that, but I think it's a great way of looking at, like, I think there's some people that are still stuck in, like, with Will Ospreay as an example, like they're still stuck with, oh, I watched the highly synchronized Ricochet GIF once and that was it. I made my mind up. Yeah. And, if you watch him now, he still gets votes in high flyer, but it's like, he's not the best high flyer because he's really not a high flyer anymore. He's a bruiser. Yeah. He looks more like a guy that beats the shit out of people than the guy that flies around to try to win.
But the thing with him, he's a much better pro wrestler now, but because I think
he's so much better.
The thing is that he has a certain series of athletic gifts, body control and explosiveness that are just uncanny, that make him stand out. It was like when I first saw like, I just remember being a kid with Satoru Siyama, and I would tell him, oh my God, like, this guy's the fastest guy I've ever seen. And they would go like, we watch Jerry Estrada. He moves in the ring really fast. And it's like, no, you don't understand.
There's levels to this.
You don't understand. It's like, oh, fast. Yeah, we watch wrestlers who move fast. And it's like, no, you don't.
The only thing I can really, as far as Ospreay's speed, Masato Yoshino, I think, for the little bit I've seen from him, and like Rey Mysterio, and that's it. Like, that's more or less the list that I can think of. Maybe I don't even think like Starlight Kid, who I think is a pretty fast worker. Maybe some other Dragon Gate guys I'm not thinking of right now, but yeah, it's
Braun Breaker and Callum Newman are for their size really fast.
Oh yeah, I don't know if that's more explosive or fast, but like, yeah, Braun Breaker's special. I fought for him to get on the FSM 50 the year before last because he didn't do much last year, but the year before I was like, this guy's probably worthy of like a 35 to 50 spot, guys. Like, he's putting on really good matches, and it's not a company that cares about match quality. But he is a hell of a worker at a young age. And I didn't win that argument. That happens sometimes. But I mean, he's, if they don't mess him up, or if he doesn't just like decide, hey, I don't have to have good matches, then I think that he could really be like a long-term special guy. As I'm completely just, stream of consciousness right now. But yeah, like another one from the win shares, and then I will try to, let Tyler be nice and let you go. This is the danger with me. Is that I think Jon Moxley, when you look at it, really benefits from it. And I think I've been voting for Moxley for a couple years now. But I think we're getting to the point, like, if we're not at it, we're really close, where as a performer, I wouldn't say as a draw. I think he's not bad as a draw. Like, he has some Hall of Fame points there as a draw, but I think as a worker, he is almost to the point where I think it's just undeniable. Because you have basically the entire AEW run. You have the Shield run in WWE. And, with some indie work you can point to if you want to, some post-Shield work stuff in WWE you can point to. But I mean, like, just from day one in AEW, he has been like an all-world performer. And we're at 7 years that now. He's probably saved. He's probably saved AEW, like, if not outright, like really kept them from going into freefall like twice now. The pandemic and then after Punk. And I think that he is an obvious, I think this is the year. I think he's clearly in, but like, I'm possibly higher on him than others. I think this is the year where, like, you have to get serious about Jon Moxley as a Hall of Fame candidate.
Yes. Yeah.
100%.
Okay, I'm going to shut the hell up so Dave can go and do other stuff.
Before we go, Dave, I just want to say thank you. You've been incredibly gracious with your time over the past couple of years with us, and I cover the NFL for a living and have for 4 years, and you don't meet a lot of people with the kind of reputation and stature like yourself who are willing to dedicate this kind of time. And I just want to say thank you. And it's very appreciative considering, you know, in my specific line of journalism, how many times you get shot down and just overlooked and like kind of ignored. And giving us this time is it's kind of special. And I just want to say really professionally and personally, thank you.
Yeah. And I really appreciate it too, because mainly I'm just a dipshit with Excel. So like, you know,
I've learned so much perspective from that stuff, you know, like you,
I mean, that's really kind of you to say.
When you look at like one of the things also, like, I should stop too, but like, you know, when we talk about like big draws,
Dave, like, we can tell Tyler to hit the bricks and we can keep going if you want, man. Like I got a clear afternoon.
Yeah. No, I don't though. I got to do
okay. Well, you got to go. You got to go then.
Okay.
But go ahead. You're saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's like when it comes to like there's when it comes to like drawing and people like go like this guy or whatever. It's like if you look at like there's certain dominant guys in every generation, right? But it's like you know, some have longevity and some don't, and the ones with longevity, it's kind of like they're special, they're rare. But Hulk Hogan wasn't the first one either. For this month's argument, but he's one of them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, he's, but it's like, I think that was what was so interesting to me when I started studying the drawing was Londos, because it was like, God damn, 21 years is like a top draw. And then, you know, he pretty much retired, but when he would do his comebacks, he still drew, you know, and it's like, that's a special draw.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, on that note, Dave, we're going to let you go. Thank you again so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for listening. On behalf of Tyler, I'm Fred. This was Dave Meltzer on it with us on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee. Everyone have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay.
Wrestling Omakase brings you a full course meal of all of Japanese wrestling, men's and women's. Join me, a Japanese wrestling fan for over 20 years, along with a rotating cast of equally knowledgeable co-hosts as we cover everything from New Japan and Stardom to Noah, All Japan, DDT, Tokyo Joshi, Mari Gold, Sendai Girls, Dragon Gate, GLEAT, Ice Ribbon, and even more stuff. If you're a fan of Japanese wrestling and you want coverage of the entire scene in one podcast, check us out right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network each and every week. Get us wherever you get podcasts today.